Welcome back. So in the previous video, we created this particular projectile. We created a projectile blueprint, and then we added a socket to the skeleton of the AK-47 mesh. And then we also created. We also said that we're going to be creating an input event or an action mapping, and we also created a fire custom event. So when the player clicks on the fire button, the left mouse button, then this event will be called. But we haven't set up anything beyond that. So inside the project settings and inside the input section, so let's create a new action mapping. So I'll create this. I'll click on add and I'll call this primary fire. That is the left mouse button. And the secondary fire would be something like bringing your scope in or bringing your iron sights in, or it could be multiple other things. Mostly in most first-person shooters, 99% of the first-person shooters till date, you will use your left mouse button to fire, and you'll use your right mouse button to either bring your scope up or bring your gun closer towards iron sights or aim closer. Okay, so I'm going to call this primary fire. And if you are also planning to use your gamepad, or you're also planning to create this game for your for consoles, or for which will be gamepad friendly or controller friendly, then you can go ahead and also use that. But for now, I'll use my mouse and I'll say left mouse button. That's going to be a primary fire. And I'm also going to be clicking. I'll also use my gamepad, which is going to be common across all the gamepads. And if your gamepad has a trigger, that'll be the right trigger. So that's how it works. So you use the right trigger to shoot, and you use the left trigger to bring up your iron sights or your scope. That's how it works in controllers normally. But you can also switch it around if you so like. I'm going to keep it quite generic, and I'm going to say gamepad right trigger. Okay, so now once that's done, you don't need to save the project settings. It automatically saves itself. And we know that all our output or all our input is actually taking place, or the input bindings and all the input code is inside the third-person character. So we're going to stick to that. I'm going to close all of these take damage functions because I don't need it right now. I'll pull it off when I need it from here. So going back to event graph, I'm going to create some sections, and this is event tech and this is event begin play. So I'm going to rearrange them to make it look a little better. And I'll just call them here. That's good enough. And I'll move them all of these guys down here. And I'll have a giant, or I'll also see if this is gamepad. I don't think I need the VR. I can just get rid of the VR for now. I don't need the VR. And oh wait, hang on. I think it's R to reset a VR orientation and position. I'm not going to need that. I'm going to delete it. And jump is okay. And I do not need the touch input either. So I'll just delete that. So we have the jump, we have the mouse input, we have the movement input, and we have the gamepad input. Okay, so I'm gonna rearrange them in a better way like this, and this can move here, so that looks a little neater like that. Okay, and I'm gonna add my fire code out here to the right. So I'll first wrap this whole thing in a giant comment box, and I'm gonna call this input bindings. Okay, and maybe if I scroll down a little bit further, I think I should just move this a little bit up like that, so that it doesn't collide with the bubbles here. And I think I want to get rid of these bubbles and show bubble when zoomed. Okay, and move mode, show bubble when zoomed. I think that's good enough. I think I'll turn off the bubble because it's annoying, so I'll turn it off. I don't need to see the bubble when zoomed. So here I'll make some space for myself. Come on, like this. Maybe I want to add more, indicating that. And maybe I'll just also give it a color, something like green, light green. That's good enough. Now I'll create, let's see. Now what I have to do now is I have to first call in that input event. So I'll say primary fire, and you can see that input action events is right there, and that's just one of it. And I'll put that here, and we'll use the secondary fire later on. We don't need to right now. In fact, we haven't even added the secondary fire, but we will come back to it later on when we need it. Okay, so we won't create the action binding yet. So once that's done, if you are looking for something like the fire event, obviously you're not going to fire, you're not going to find it because that's inside the weapon base and it's not inside the third person character. And we don't have a reference to the weapon base yet or the equipped weapon yet. So what I'm going to do here is after we spawn the weapon, we just spawning it once during event begin play, and then we are moving on to attach it to a particular component. So I want to store this as a variable so that I can use it for later. So I can either right click and I can promote to variable, or I can just pull off from here and I can click on promote to variable and then reconnect everything like this. Okay, and this goes here and this goes here. Okay, so now everything is connected. Okay, I think I'll just control and move this and put it away like that. So that's there, and I just have to rename my variable now, and the variable can be current weapon. Okay, and if you have more than one weapon, then that's gonna, this variable is gonna get updated in the future. When you switch weapons, then we have to call upon this variable and update it. So right now the current weapon is AK-47, and maybe later on when you switch to a RPG or some other weapon, then that is going to change out here.